Hi, everybody, and welcome. Let's please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Hammond?
Here.
Vice President Clements?
Here.
Trustee Daly?
Here.
Trustee Parr?
Here.
Trustee Schwartz?
Here.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence for Mrs. Jean Marzolo, who's former Haldane Board of Education president, parent, grandparent, and friend to all who are a member of this community. She passed away on April 3rd. Also, we please keep in mind Tara Vitanza, who's a 2007 Haldane graduate who passed away this week. Okay, we're going to start off tonight's meeting with a special presentation. As you know, tonight the board will have the opportunity to share the budget one more time with everyone, and we will work on having the opportunity to vote as well this evening. So we're going to start with the special presentation, which is the budget. We'll share.
So there is nothing new in this budget presentation. What was presented last week is still what's in there. But we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. Instead of telling you what's not in the budget, I think we're going to talk a little bit about what is in the budget and what this budget is doing for our school and for everyone involved, including our terrific kids. So in January, we had a presentation about the strategic plan and where we were with the strategic plan. And so when we were talking about it, we were reintroducing the goals. We were talking about a little bit about what was going on in the district. And at that point, the board asked us to find out and get some information and compile information that would let us know where we are at this moment in time with our Board of Education and our strategic plan goals. So today I'm going to pull back, but today I wanted to introduce to you a topic that we have just updated. And there are copies over here. And this is a topic that is a chronology of what has happened since we created our strategic plan. And in it, there is the first 10 pages are the 10 goals. And where we used to have, this has been on our website, and it's been growing for the last 3 years. So what we had in the past is just the goals, and what we now have is also the things that have occurred throughout the district for each of the goals that was created by the strategic plan. And one of the things I hope that you recognize is as we go through this is that this is a document, this is a living document, this is a growing document. And when we first started, the last few pages are a chronology of what happened from the beginning of the strategic plan. And it talks about the milestones, and then it starts at the work begins. And from fall 2015 to the last information, or the last page of information, is spring of 2018. This is a chronology of every few months what was happening and what the district did in order to make the strategic plan a living, breathing document that helps to steer the district. So I wanted to introduce you to that. So this is something at your leisure. Please feel free to take a look and look at the many things that we have done in order to make the 10 goals become alive. So we thought a little bit we should talk about what all of the things that we have come together and created in our budget has done. So we are going to start with the first goal. Okay, so if you look at the first page, there is, I'm on the wrong side. The first goal is a goal about ensuring the teaching and learning strategies are aligned K-12 to maintain collaborative professional environment where best and next practice are discovered and shared, while fully implementing common core initiatives that provide rigor and relevance along with deep thinking, reflection, and innovation. So in the 6 months that we had to create the strategic plan, this was the first goal that came out. And as it should be, because we have to remember, even though we've been talking about just about everything but, the reason why we're here is for kids and learning. And what we hope to focus on, and one of my goals in the next couple months is to keep reminding myself to spend more time talking about the educational piece than the financial piece or the other pieces that we've been spending a lot of time talking about. So if you look down the list, these are things that you would probably, when you start reading them, these are things that you are seeing on a daily basis. And in a way, we kind of take for granted that these things are happening. And these things are happening because of the great work of the Strategic Planning Committee, the different committees within the Strategic Planning Committee, and the very, very meaty goals that we've created. And actually, my husband was reading this the other night, and he was looking at this and he's saying, you know, you realize that you have like 5 or 6 goals in each goal. And I said, yes, I realize that, but there's so much and it's so interwoven that we really can't delineate. And all we have done and all the decisions and all the committees and all the conversations and the professional development that has occurred has gotten us to the place that we can do this. And I think if you look at a lot of neighboring school districts, or if you look at the school districts that are very quickly, as we are, moving into the 21st century skill set that we hope to create in our children, I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve. And I hope that we remain that way. And it's because of the good thinking, it's because of the work that we have done, and it's because of the dedication, I have to say, of the administrators and the teachers in this district that go above and beyond and always go one step further, that we're at the point that we are in a few short years. So that's the first, and it talks about everything from next generation science standards to team planning meetings to mixed grade level, project-based institutes and professional development, and all of this is related to Goal 1. The second, nurture a collaborative professional environment that builds the capacity of staff through ongoing professional development that is sustainable, embedded in structure, culture, and climate, while providing time to think, plan, and collaborate. So all of the different things that we have been talking about building capacity and taking the work, the fine work that we're doing with some of the best and the brightest in the nation as far as professional development, this is now being interwoven into this, and you can see that the goal again, is very clearly being implemented and growing. A couple of things, and I might as well talk about some of the things that we've been hearing about. The 2-hour delays. And we know that this year was an incredibly difficult year as far as managing all the pressures that happened because of the snow. And we are also, by the way, and I think we already announced this, we are going to cancel our 2-hour delay in May. Because we just need to get the kids in school, and we need to make sure that what they're doing in their classes takes priority over everything. But many of the things here are the goals that we have been talking about since the inception. And it's really a wonderful experience going through all this. And I think we have teachers, you know, one of the interesting things, and this is kind of a sidebar, but when we were at the New Tech Network Institute this summer in St. Louis, we had our team leaders and our coaches asked to speak to the administrators, and they sat us down and they said, this is what we need from you. And at that moment, I knew that it was systemic. It had taken hold. And when the tables turn and the teachers are the ones that are driving the change, it has become systemic, and it will maintain. And so what we have now, the people that are really the cheerleaders for the work that we've done and want very much to keep things going, are our teachers. And to the point that within the last few months, we've created an instructional committee that's a K-12 committee. Each of the buildings has their own, but it will turn into a K-12 committee that will be the steering committee for the instructional change, the pedagogical shifts, and the movement of the district for years to come. And so that's where we are at this point. So we have handed the baton over to the teachers at this point. And we certainly are very much part of the conversation, but they are the ones that are going to maintain and sustain and keep everything growing and vibrant and moving forward. The third goal, developing and supporting an ongoing passion for teaching and learning through the implementation of authentic project-based experiences that promote engagement, motivation, deeper learning, and provide diverse career, civic, and educational opportunities. Again, this is all from the work of the strategic plan, and a lot of this actually came from the students. When we were in the discovery process, we had a committee of high school students and we had a committee of middle school students. And one of the things that kept replicating itself in the conversations was to make sure that they had an opportunity for civic engagement. And so this was a whole level of learning that they felt was very important that may not have taken a front seat if we were the ones that were developing the strategic plan alone. But because the students were very much integrated into the process, that came through. And
Go ahead. No, I want you to finish your sentence, but before you went to the next one, I wanted to say something.
it's all
Okay.
gone.
Okay, sorry. You say it came from the students, and I don't have any reason to doubt that that's true. That makes sense. But so the committee that I was on in the strategic planning process was, and I can't remember what it was called, but I think it was like college and career readiness,
Yep.
right? Because I was
Yes.
with Julie. And so everything in this particular goal, I mean, it came from the students, but it was really clear. I mean, I feel like this particular goal really captured everything that we did in our committee, really recognizing the need for civic engagement, career opportunities, things outside of what we think of as sort of the traditional classroom experience.
Right. And I'm not discounting anything that any of the other groups did. I think that what I was just reflecting were the many hours of conversations I had with the students, and kind of my interest and surprise to their focus on, and what we ended up calling it as a category, is civic and social conditions for learning. And they were so focused on that in all the conversations. And I think that the parents and certainly the teachers also replicated that. But when I think about the civic and social conditions for learning, I think about the kids.
Cool, thanks.
So 4, providing the space, tools, and capacity to grow and change as needed, and meeting the demands of the learner in a campus where technology is ubiquitous and access is available to all. I think we've done a really good job in ensuring that, especially with the Smart School Bond Act. Money went into upgrading the infrastructure, which was the biggest headache of all of that coming into it. And we still have work to do, but we're in a much better place. And that the classroom supports will foster multiple learning styles and fit the need of all students. So as you're going through these lists that are below each of the goals, realize that what we did is, after the board said, can you give us an idea of how they are being implemented throughout the district, we sent out a Google Doc. And since we are a Google school, that's how we're doing many things. And all of the people who were involved in all of these just started writing lists, and we kept lists going, and it could have been from the coaches, it could have been from the teachers, the administrators, anybody that was involved. And then in a number of places we had to collapse multiple bullets together because they were essentially the same. But so all of these bullets are from the teachers and the community at large. The instructional community at large that came together to provide that for us. 5, support the creation and implementation of the learner profiles that inform and address social, emotional, and academic needs of the students. We've been talking a lot about the work that's been done there, the staff development that we had with the Yellen Center for Mind, Brain, and Education, and the work that we're doing with Yale with the ruler methodologies that are being infused into the classes in grades 4, 7, and 9, and how we're going to continue this platform of learning for the students in a different way that will be more cost effective, but will still have the same instructional support for these kids. Thank you. God bless you. 6, maintain and enhance a robust, diverse, and inclusive platform of educational and extracurricular opportunities and effectively communicate the availability to students in K-12. While ensuring that they nurture the qualities of entrepreneurial problem solving, such as leadership, social and civic responsibility, and a spirit for curiosity and discovery. And so this is more of a list of all of the different things that we offer to our kids in K-12. And they are, when we say sports, we'll just say varsity sports, JV sports, but you know that they're a much wider range. And I can tell you, knowing how busy our students are, they're well aware of these opportunities and take advantage of them. Okay, 7, embrace the concept of campus that allows students to engage in learning through travel to the community and beyond, both physical and virtual, and promote opportunities year-round, both on campus and in the community. And if you have been around over the last week, we have very tired administrators, and we have kids that have traveled to Washington, D.C., to New Orleans, and have been given experiences that most kids don't have. And it's awfully nice that I believe this is the 5th year in a row that the seniors have chosen to go down and build homes for people that need the extra support in New Orleans instead of going on some kind of senior trip that would have occurred in the past. Develop a financial plan that is both fiscally and educationally responsible, creating greater efficiencies through shared services, strong relationships with municipalities, neighboring school districts, and tapping into new revenue sources. So as we created the budget, and as you watched us go through the many stages of the budget development process, I'm hoping that you saw these things. You know, it's budgeting in a very different way than we used to budget. It's really looking at and prioritizing the things that matter and figuring out where to get them to the best of our ability. Create a long-range facilities plan that will begin to match the buildings and the classrooms to dynamic vision of the community and its students, ensuring a safe, efficient, collaborative, and inspiring place to learn. That we've done some. I mean, right now we have needs in the district that are related to the buildings that really are more efficiency and just daily living needs, and not the real pie in the sky needs that would go along with some of the 21st century learning. But we're doing what we can. We're making sure our kids have the opportunities to learn in ways that are meaningful to them. And then the last is maintaining ongoing two-way communication with the community to make you an integral part of our future initiatives and foster an understanding of the living strategic vision for our schools. So hopefully that's what we've just done. And we've put it in relationship. And that was just a really quick overview. Again, we did something in January that was more extensive and similar to this. But I think at this time, when we've looked at the creation of the budget development process, and you look at the 10 goals that were created, you can see how this has become a living document. It's growing. It will be morphing through the next couple of years. And the funding that we're using, we're trying to use in the best places to accomplish this vision. So instead of, unfortunately, having to talk about what we may not be able to support, this is what we continue to support, to continue to grow for our students. And this is the very important part of the education and budget process that we don't want to forget to have with you. So.
Dr. Bowers,
Sure.
I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
My comment is, the board really made it clear when the strategic plan was in motion that we wanted to make sure this was a living document. We wanted to make sure it didn't sit on the shelf somewhere, that it was something that we were reminded of, that the parents and teachers, administrators were all constantly working on. And I feel like this really demonstrates that that's been happening. So I thank you, and I thank the administration and the teachers for keeping it in the forefront. And my question is, as you look at it critically, as you look at the 10 goals, do you feel like there are certain goals that, is there one that we're kind of knocking out of the park, and is there one that hasn't had as much attention yet, that we're not doing as well on? Is there kind of a spectrum of how well all of the goals are going, or do you feel like they're all equally going well? Or does
Well, I would say the place we've probably had the least amount of change, all in all, is in the extracurricular activities. But I think the good news is that we already had them. And we're just ensuring that we're able to maintain them. We have had the opportunity to bring some new clubs in, and that has been student-led, and the students have told us what they want. But I think that's if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. And I think the kids, I don't know that we don't provide anything for them that they would like. But when I look at it, and when I was kind of reviewing this before and refining this before I brought it to you, it was all the things that we've always been doing. But it doesn't mean that we're not willing to do other things. And we have grown with the needs of the kids. But I would say it's not that we're not hitting it out of the ballpark, because our kids are busy. And when you only have 900 kids in a district and you have so many people doing so many things, it's the same students, and they're doing multiple things. But I think that really the shift in philosophy and the shift in teaching and learning is the place I think that we have had the most dramatic change. And for any of the principals, if you would like, if there's anything you would like to share, because you've been living with it as we have. So if there's any parts of it that you think that we're hitting it out of the ballpark or we're not, and we need to look at, please.
I would just agree that I think the focus on teaching and learning has really shifted. I think there's a lot of conversation, a lot of professional conversation, a lot of professional collaboration that I think the nation is definitely seeing in public education, but we definitely, I think, have made tremendous strides and growth in that area. 20 years ago, I was a classroom teacher. It sounds crazy, it was that long ago, but you kind of taught in your own four walls, and you closed the door and you taught the kids in front of you. I think education is changing in that the collaboration between the adults working together has definitely shifted. And I think, again, that's been a huge
But I'd
change
also like
recently.
to say that some of the collaboration I've seen with both, not only the adults, but also the students, and we spend a lot of time doing critical friends protocols. And we have our faculty, when they're talking and they're working and they're assessing certain instructional practices or a piece of student work or a piece of their own work or something that or a class that they have taught that others have observed. We have very specific ways in which we talk about it, so it creates and it fosters the growth mindset, and it doesn't make anybody feel that they've done anything incorrect. It's just it's a growing tool. It's what they see. It's a lot of pats on the back, but it's also really good conversation. And when you walk into a classroom and you see the students using similar or the same protocols, it's equally as supportive. And if we want people to feel safe in trying new things, and I think that's also embedded in here. And the fact that we use protocols, and if I walk into a faculty meeting, the faculty is using the protocols. Or if you walk in to a staff development support group or PD, they're using protocols. You walk in to the 7th grade English classroom, they're using protocols. So it's not just the learning, it's the learning and how to deepen it and bring it into the classrooms and bring into student learning. And so I think there's multiple layers there. So if there, I hope you find a few minutes to review all of this, and if there are any questions about the fourth rendition of what we have proposed as far as the budget for next year, I'd be happy to answer those.
Should we call up, I think on board docs, I don't know if you all have it, but on board docs there's the same budget that we showed last week.
We do have that.
Maybe it's a good idea. I'm not sure if everybody in the audience
So could you pull up the PowerPoint?
was here last week or not, but it'll just be a good refresher, even for the board, as we later on have the opportunity to
Why don't you-
adopt.
Okay, so these are the things that are included in our budget. You know, we have our instructional proposition, and this is the fourth review or the fourth budget. We are including in that a vehicle purchase. We're asking to reestablish the capital reserve, which is basically a place that we can take reserve funds and hold them for use at later dates. It's a 10-year process, and every 10 years the community has to provide the support so we can reestablish it for the next 10 years at a maximum of $1 million in the reserves. And you've been seeing the money being pulled out of the reserve for various different things. We did the work in the gymnasium last year. The field was also paid with reserve funds. And so whatever is needed, it's a savings account for the district basically, that you have to approve us spending. But you have to approve that the funding, when we ask you to vote yes or no, you decide whether or not we can spend the money on that. We also collect for the library, and we talk about the very negative consequences of a contingent budget. So, I'm sorry, it's a little bit reflecting. No, I think I can do it. It's just that light. So that's what's included. We were talking about potential reductions in special ed services. That's not been cut. We have that in there. Thank you. We have a certified librarian at the middle school and high school that will be infusing into the elementary school as well next year. We have 4 sections of 3rd grade because this particular grade really needs the additional support services that we can provide for it. Our kindergarten is large enough this year that we will have 3 sections instead of 2. We will preserve the Discover, Create, and Innovate courses that are very much aligned with the strategic plan at both the middle school and the high school. We have included a new arts coordinator position. We have a school peace officer that is still in the budget, and the equipment that we're going to be using to have produce badges for people who come in and sign in, and we know who they are and where they're going. This is also going to enhance security down by the gymnasium, and at one point we had 2 positions that we introduced to do those 2 jobs. It's now been combined into 1. We have assistance for our technology and the work that needs to be done both in school and interfacing with the state education department and the instructional and the repository for state ed through the RIC. We're maintaining our athletic trainer, giving her insurance at this point so we can keep her. And we're maintaining instructional and management software that we're required to have, and we have, as the cost goes up, we have to go up with it. And we're preserving a level of professional development that we've had in the past, but we're doing it differently. Instead of sending people out to places and institutes, we're actually going to bring them here this summer and save money that way. Still providing the professional development, but doing it a little differently. So we're trying to share the burden of a deficit within our budget over a number of places. We're decreasing aid positions by 2 full-time equivalents through attrition. We have 2 people that are going to be retiring. We are going, what I just said, reducing professional development costs by bringing summer travel here as opposed to St. Louis. We're reducing 1/6 period assignment. We're reducing the allocation or halving the allocation for contingent athletic coaches if we have large numbers. We're reducing fuel oil budget based on a 2-year trend, and hopefully we'll be able to maybe scale it back a little bit so we can do that. Reducing a quarter of a teaching assistant, and we're modifying entrance monitoring plans that we told you. Where it used to be 2 positions, it's now 1. So if you look at the, we have the deficits. We look at, on the bottom, we have the additions. We're looking at all of the costs coming back together and the balance with what we've taken out and what we've put in. We're at the 0 point at this point. We have a 30-passenger bus that's we're going to ask you to approve or disapprove if that's the direction that the community wants to go. We're going to ask you to keep the capital reserve fund going for the next 10 years with the maximum amount of that's being deposited of $1 million over the 10-year period.
And Diana, just to confirm for some of the new faces here, it's not putting that money in there, it's just leaving the money that we have and then adding to it or taking away from it as is appropriate.
Right.
It's not an additional
Right. At this
$1
point, we're not making any recommendations on funding to go in there. We do have funding in there, and we can add more through the years. The library levy, that we just collect the money for the library and then hand it over to them. So this is something that you will decide if, as far as the library levy goes. If the budget were to be voted down 2 times, we would have to go to a contingency budget, and that would require an additional $500,000 worth of cuts in order to run school next year on a contingent budget. Anything I missed? Okay, so that's a quick review of the budget.
Nothing's changed from the last meeting, but
exactly
we
the
did
same.
want to review that again. Okay. Moving on to Superintendent's Report.
Laura, do you want to
sorry.
ask do you want to do questions about the budget now?
You know,
before
I
we
was-
move on, or you want to wait?
Yeah, we can. I was just looking, communications at F, but we can do that now. Did you?
Just because I was feeling people are here to talk about the budget.
There's nobody on the sheet.
Nobody signed in? Is anyone
Oh,
here
okay.
to speak? Here to speak, please sign in.
You good?
You'll have an opportunity again later on in the meeting if a question comes up in your mind. Thank you. Okay.
So the first, I'm going to actually defer to the high school principal, who's going to be sharing. So you want to do your report early since it's part of, so this can be
No, if May's gonna stay awake, I need to be
this-
able to stay awake
so-
still.
something that we're including in the budget, but this is just a different way. And instead of me sharing the good news, I would like Mrs. Sniffen to share the good news.
So we did receive notice just today. And again, this is based on standardized test scores. So we know that is one measure of students. And, you know, you look at somebody like May and you know a standardized test is definitely not the be-all, end-all. But when kids do well, it is definitely something to celebrate. Our students ranked number 1 on the SAT testing in Putnam County. And number 8 out of all schools north of Long Island and Westchester. So number 8 in New York State for the northern region. So that is definitely something to celebrate. Our kids work very hard. We are incredibly proud of them. So just some good news to share. Should I do the rest of my report? So that's one. I want to congratulate Miss Seidman, who's been doing a lot of work over, I would say, maybe the last, since she's been here, I mean, 7 years or so, on teaching personal finance to our high school students in their economics course. And yet again, this year, She was awarded for the third year in a row, top 100 school teachers in the nation in teaching personal finance to students. So I just want to congratulate Ms. Seidman and her hard work in her high school economics class. So, and thank you to the amazing seniors that I got to spend a week with in New Orleans building houses for Habitat. They were great.
So just to kind of give you some more perspective on the information about our SAT scores, generally there is a report that comes out, and they call it upstate districts, and what is considered upstate is anything above Westchester County. So it's all schools from Putnam, Rockland, and up, Dutchess, and continuing up. So it was out of 600 school districts that we scored the 8th from the 600 school districts in New York State for our SAT scores. And we've been consistently rated as the top school in Putnam County. So congratulations to all the people that are very smart.
And can I just, because I've said multiple times, talking about how I really feel as though, I'm sorry, Haldane, as far as when we talk about colleges and the Haldane diploma means something, and this just reinforces that even more. That's really an extraordinary an accomplishment, and it even in the district in the strategic plan implementation that you did, there was a mention of it with the restructuring of the math, and the fact that the teachers and the administration really, like, SATs there really is there's nothing, I don't know how to put it, but like there's no rating on that. The SAT scores are generally separate from the way you would evaluate a school or a teacher, and like generally people don't say, oh wow, May got something on a SAT. Well, she must have had a great math teacher. Generally it doesn't go hand in hand. But to still take that time and effort to really shift the curriculum to the SAT really says something. And you also see it in the AP scores that the students get as well. So that is really a truly amazing accomplishment. And again, it goes to the whole reinforcement of how the colleges are perceiving, looking at the graduates coming out of Haldane, and that's why they're getting into the schools that they're applying to. So.
Well, congratulations to all.
Speaking of the restructuring of the math program, at some point, if we can have Mr. Sassano, I think we had asked last year if he could kind of report back to us at the end of the year to let us know how. Sure, that'd be great.
So I think many people may know or may not know. We opted this year as part of the Algebra 2 Common Core course, not mandating the Regents as part of the course. That it would be an option for students if they wanted to take the Regents. And the logic and the reasoning behind it, if you hadn't been following it over the year, is that trigonometry was pulled out of Algebra 2 Common Core. And to take calculus or intro to calc or advanced calc, you really need a foundation in trig. So what we opted to pull the Regents out to put the trig back in to help our kids be ready for intro to calc or AP calc if they chose that route. There was a little bit of going back and forth on whether we wanted to do it or not, because to get the advanced designated diploma, you needed to take the Algebra 2 trig Regents and meet mastery on that as well. Our math department is phenomenal, and any student who wants to take the Algebra 2 Common Core Regents exam, they've signed up for it. We have 16 students who are opting to take it, knowing that there's 2 units of study that we didn't cover in the course because we put trig in. The teachers are teaching those during HART after school, and students are going to get that content to be able to take the Regents and feel like they're better prepared for it. I think the teachers would say, as the students would say as well, I think the pacing has been very nice for the students. I think the teachers are feeling like they're continuing to teach all the way through June, through that, what would be the Regents, without that actual Regents hanging and sitting there. But kids have the option to take it, and we'll continue to offer that. One of the things when we discussed and we shifted to the change was that designation of the Advanced Regents Diploma is something you receive well after you've been accepted to colleges, well after you've decided what your path is beyond high school. You literally get that notification when you're handed your diploma on June 16th. So it's great. It's a nice honor to have. But we really believed giving our kids and preparing them more for advanced math courses meant more than that sticker on the diploma after they had already gotten to colleges. So I think Lou would say, and I'm sure we could try to get Lou to come to a board meeting one evening after AP exams are over, but he would probably reiterate what I just said. But I'm sure he'll watch this, and if there's something I missed, he will certainly email us all.
Thank you.
Okay, so Friday, April 20th, it is once again a Parkland, Florida remembrance. And if you remember when they were talking about the walkout initially, 1 month after the shooting in Parkland, they also said that they were going to be having a call to action for April 20th. And originally, we were talking about inviting some local politicians in. Originally, I wrote a letter, and then the students said, we want to take care of it. So I handed over the letter that I wrote, and so I guess that they're organizing it. So are you part of that?
Yeah, should I?
Sure.
Yeah. I've personally reached out to Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff about attending. We were and still hoping to aim for this Friday, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we may be pushing it to a to be determined date. But we really wanted to have some local politicians come in so students could share their thoughts with them and ask questions to the government officials about school safety and gun issues, as that's still a really relevant topic.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And so we thought that was the right people to talk to were the people who made the laws. And so I congratulate the students for wanting to move it forward and take advantage of the opportunity. And so I think it's going to be a very positive momentum forward. We are in the midst of ELA and math exams, 3.8 state testing, and you've probably heard a little bit about some of the debacles that have happened this week, especially with computer testing. So I know that the state is very actively working on that, but as far as the opt-out numbers, this is always an area of interest. In grades 3 through 5 at the elementary school, we had 12 students opt out of 187. Middle school, grades 6 through 8, we had 50 students opt out of 207. So just some information there. We also had, and we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting, we are petitioning the state to have modifications of grade level configurations. And right now, Haldane is a K-8 school and a high school. And since we no longer work as a K-8 school and a high school, we're asking the state education department to see us as 3 distinct schools. So that information is going to the state, and that's something that we'll be looking for next year. So.
Could I just ask a question?
Sure.
What's the difference between the...
Just because, so for the recording, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody has to, sorry.
I was just wondering what the difference being a K through 8 versus and a high school versus being 3 individuals, is there any benefit to that, or is it just for classification?
Not really. It just gets murky when you're doing reporting and different things, because we used to be a K-8 school.
Right.
And now it's, if you want to have something that's specific to the middle school, it's much more difficult. So it's just going to make it more clear and easier in certain areas, but there's really no benefits, so there's no deficits to being 3. It's just what we are, so we're just making it be reflective.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Moving on to information reports. May?
Well, last week is always a really busy week for the high school. It's already been talked about, but the seniors were in New Orleans to do Habitat for Humanity, and we also got to experience a lot of New Orleans. We went to some local restaurants and were able to spend a lot of time in the French Quarter. So I personally thought the trip was a really great experience, and I know we all had a really good time on it. And the sophomore class was also on a trip this week. They were in DC, and I haven't had the chance to talk to any of the sophomores about their personal experience with the trip, but I know it's always really successful, and it looks like everyone had a great time. And the freshmen were also in New York City. They saw a Broadway play, and I know when I went freshman year and got to see The Lion King on Broadway, it was a really great experience. So. And at this time of year, basically, the upper grades are mainly just preparing for AP exams. So that's always a very busy time, especially with the amount of school we've missed. The teachers are really starting to get into the schedule of preparing for the tests. And as I already mentioned, myself and Freya Gallagher are working to plan a town hall type forum during school hours with local politicians, so students can voice their opinions to them.
Thank you. And I can tell you, having a sophomore, they enjoyed the Washington trip. So, Mr. Wallach.
Good evening, everybody. I know I shared with you a while ago that Mr. Sniffin's middle school debate group came in and worked with our fourth graders on debating skills. And I want to tell you a little bit about how we've used that. We always try to have deeper learning projects, and our fourth grade teachers came up with a really great but impossibly controversial plan where they looked at a building on the SUNY New Paltz campus that's actually named after someone who happened to have been a slave owner hundreds of years ago. And they wanted to have a debate with their students as to whether or not that was considered appropriate, should that name be changed. We had a good professional discussion about it because some of them were a little bit scared. Could they bring that to their children? Would there be pain for some children if they were discussing slavery? We decided as a group, we had a consensus that we were going to go ahead with it. The teachers were able to go up to the SUNY New Paltz campus. They spoke with archivists there, historians there, were able to get some real documents that they were able to bring back to their students, so their students could have really firsthand knowledge of exactly who this person was, what the history is all behind it, and the students were preparing for a debate. And it brings together so many skills that our students need to have to be successful as they move forward in their school career and in life. And you know, to be able to see young children, fourth graders, 9 years old, some of them 10 years old, be able to do something like that is really an amazing experience and a credit to the hard work and talents of our teachers who can put that together, for our students. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight. One other quick plug: next Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. is our elementary musical. All are invited to come see Aladdin, purposely scheduled at 6 p.m. So should there be a board meeting at 7 p.m., you can still attend that and attend the board meeting as well. And I wasn't here last year for The Lion King, which I'm told was absolutely fabulous, but we are expecting Aladdin to be even better. There is a cast and crew of about 60 elementary students, and it should be a great time. So anyone who can make it before the board meeting next week is certainly welcome. Thank you. The date is next Tuesday, which I believe is the 24th. It is at 6 p.m. in our auditorium.
Don't we actually have?
We have a 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m.
But it's like a 5-minute
5-minute,
board meeting.
right.
Yes. And they're going to start 5 minutes late for the stragglers, so,
It'll be 5 minutes.
yeah.
That's right. It is 6 on that. In the district office, we said, right?
The talent show, what are we hearing? Talent show is, sorry, got to put the plugs in, Mr. Wallach.
So I heard from the audience to include the talent show. The talent show is this Friday night at 6 p.m. also in our auditorium. We have 40 acts that have been put together something. They're limited to 2 minutes apiece because otherwise we'll be here all through the night, and that just can't happen. But it should be a great time. Refreshments will be sold for those who are coming straight from work or need to get some good snacks for themselves or their children. So Friday night at 6 p.m. Again, if you want to join us, please do. The date would be April 20th, 6 p.m.
Thank you. Ms. Silky?
Good evening, everyone. Just to piggyback on Mr. Wallach, Jeff Sniffen did an amazing job with the debate. There are some lovely pictures on our website, as well as all of the different awards that our students won, which, as I understand, as in previous years, they cleaned up. So, so please, take a look at the middle school website so that you can see those pictures and read about those successes. So, and it's even more amazing when you think about that it had gotten snowed out, and Mr. Sniffen went through heroic measures to get a snow date, because there wasn't a snow date originally scheduled by Bard College. So, through reaching out to his contacts at Bard at the other schools, he was able to arrange for the debate to go on, which was great because the students really did spend quite a bit of time preparing. And speaking of things that got snowed out, the faculty-student basketball game had gotten snowed out and then got rescheduled on the same date as our Wonder screening, which was our MSIT reading book. And we were afraid that nobody would come to the Wonder screening because they'd all be playing at the basketball game or vice versa. But it turned out that the screening was very well attended, and I trust that the basketball game was well attended as well. And nobody got hurt. And certainly, like, the screening, if you haven't seen the movie Wonder, there was about 30 of our students and their families there, some younger siblings at the Butterfield. Thank you to Maureen McGrath, the librarian of the Butterfield, and thank you to the PTA for arranging for that screening. It was really just a nice wrap up of the Community Reads event, which is, such a unifying event for the middle school. So last week we had our New York State ELA tests, and I know you already heard the opt-out numbers. You may have read a little bit about session 2 being long. Even though the test was cut down from 3 days to 2 days, the second session was quite long. I just wanted to let you know that on average our students took about 2.5 hours to do that session. So in case you were wondering, because you had read about some other districts. And then the students blew off some steam at the middle school activity night, which I again have to thank the PTA and the student council for putting on. The middle school activity night was really enjoyed by all, and I think part of the reason for that is the creativity of Alex Jubroff, our PTA president, and Giannina Capello, our middle school vice president for the PTA, who put together different activities for kids to do. So there was karaoke, there was a photo booth, there was Mr. Crow did a dance revolution competition, there was ping pong. So there was a lot of different activities for kids to be involved in, and it was the perfect thing to cap off a week with testing that could be stressful for some kids. And the New York State math testing is coming up May 1st and 2nd, which reminds me that we had discussions today about moving Discovery Night, because Discovery Night on the original calendar falls during New York State math testing, which really would not be the best for our kids. So Mr. Walk and I are going to put our heads together to come up with a new date that would be more advantageous. And I did have a group of 7th graders come and present to myself and the MSIC committee earlier this year about wanting to participate in Discovery Night as well. So it's my understanding that although there haven't been older grades invited or open to the Discovery Night?
No, it's there.
Have it?
Yeah.
It's going to be 7th grade this year, and open to our 8th grade as well.
In the high school.
And the high school. Oh, okay. Sorry, misunderstanding on my behalf.
That's okay.
And last but certainly not least, an update on the ongoing DCI projects that are involving the town. It's my understanding that the tunnel has been power washed in preparation for the beautification project. Our students are appealed to the town to be able to paint the tunnel, and also to beautify the tunnel and to put positive quotes on the tunnel. So all of that is getting prepared, and the date where that work will start is to be announced. And the skate park idea is still being heard by the Board of Recreation as well. And our students that have designed the skate park have been asked to poll their fellow students to see if the skate park would fulfill the recreation needs of our students. So they have created and are distributing a Google Forms to ask their classmates if a skate park will occupy them and satisfy the recreation needs for the town. So for the children of the town. So more to come on that. Sorry to be so long.
Thank you. Ms. Sniffen, do you have anything else to add? You're good. Okay. Dr. Shoa?
Good evening, everybody. That's a little low. Just one quick item to announce. I believe I put it in a previous board report, but myself and two of our staff members, one secondary special education teacher and one of our psychologists, have been attending an ongoing training at Putnam Northwest Chester BOCES on an initiative called Student Driven IEPs. And Student Driven IEPs are, just like they sound, students who are given the agency to sort of take over their own CSE meeting, the Committee on Special Education meeting. So typically this falls on older students who are a little bit more able to vocalize their strengths and interests and learning needs in a committee and aren't too shy to say it. And however, something that we've considered very closely is at what age this becomes appropriate and what age that it is known to be legal, a legal requirement for them to be invited. So something that we're sort of coming around to now is understanding what is the bare minimum in terms of our legal requirement and how we can start to help kids self-actualize beyond what the legal minimum requirement is, and helping them to understand what their real true potential is in terms of understanding themselves as a learner, the way that their brain works, the way that they participate in class, how their interests and strengths can really guide their education, not only from grades K to 12, but post-secondary as well. So we've been sort of brainstorming and figuring out how we want to trial this program and who we want to invite to the sort of celebration day at Putnam Northwest Chester BOCES, when some of the students are invited to develop a presentation and sort of do a mock CSE meeting, which is only just a couple minutes long, but they present on their own interests and strengths and challenges and how they like to learn. So we're going through that process now, and the celebration's on May 17th, and hopefully one or two students will be traveling with us to BOCES campus to present in front of a big group of strangers. So right now we've chosen some students who are in the middle school, so are on the younger end of the spectrum. So hopefully they'll be ready and willing to participate, and they're practicing next week in front of their grade level faculty. So we're really excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Solom.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to say I have a lot to talk about, but I don't. Mother Nature's still not cooperating, so I don't have too many updates in the field of athletics. But one thing I did want to mention is, since I arrived here at Haldane, one of the things I've looked to improve on is our facilities, and we've had a lot of great donors and volunteers and the help of the school district to upgrade both the gym and to complete the press box. And our next mini project is installing a jumping pit for our track and field program. And it looks like we are extremely close. We have volunteers lined up. We're ready to purchase the materials. It's just a matter of Mother Nature cooperating. We're hoping to have it done possibly even for this season, for maybe the last 3-4 weeks. But if not, we'll definitely have it done in the next few months so that we could use it in the fall and moving forward in our PE classes and for our track and field program. We're going to do it on the far end of the turf, it looks like. And like I said, everything's lined up. It's really just a matter of, having the time to get it done, because it's going to be mostly volunteer. So thank you.
Thanks. And that request actually came from a student that was brought to the board's attention, and I think may have helped facilitate with Hudson. So good work by students. Okay. Any communication from the public this time? Administrators, have a good evening.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion?
Motion? Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda personnel. May I have,
Motion?
Second. Evan
Any
was just
discussion?
pointing out the 4 meetings in 8
Eight
days. that the
days,
board has had.
any discussion, questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Bowers, will you just comment? So the part-time teacher aide is going to be doing the cafeteria door starting,
Next week.
next week.
And that's just for the remainder of the year.
And then the proposal is that the SPO would then take over that role starting July 1st
Yeah.
or September 1st or whatever, whenever.
Correct.
I guess September 1st,
Yes.
right? Because we wouldn't have it over the summer, obviously, right? Thank you.
Okay. Correspondence, as we've mentioned at the last meeting, there have been many correspondence. Some have been revised and forwarded to us. However, they're still not quite the way they should be. We've checked with legal counsel. Ms. Formularo and myself will have to review all the letters again before I would feel comfortable posting, having had that conversation. We just really like to protect the privacy of our children. So if your letter's not there, it doesn't mean it wasn't part of the public. Ms. Formularo keeps copies. It doesn't disappear, and it may show up at some point in public content. But we did post Mr. Peckus because he didn't refer to any children or to that matter.
And Laura, I assume that because I know that people resubmitted their letters to us, that tells me that it's important to them.
Absolutely.
That it gets put up on board docs. So
Except
is there some,
we've
and
been,
you guys are you guys back and forthing with people being like, take this out or take that
And
out?
Evan pointed out that we've had 4 and 5 meetings in a row
Yeah.
and tomorrow. And so I just honestly haven't had a second to sit down and review all of the letters
But
again.
that's the process. You guys
Right.
will reach out to the people that wrote letters that wasn't quite right to tell them how to make it right?
Yes, or else we would have to redact them ourselves, and that's a bit of a big process. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable taking on that responsibility.
Of course, yeah.
So
Okay.
we'll get there. It's just been a bit hectic.
So not, Laura, I completely understand that there's been a lot to do, but I'm wondering, is there, when you spoke with the district's council, are there guidelines? Because there's also, instead of you going back and forth and doing it, if there were specific guidelines, right? Because I think the information we gave to the public last time was sort of based on our understanding, like student names and identifying kids, but I'm wondering if the district's council was able to provide like a set of criteria, then it wouldn't be left up to us. And I think, not that we want to impose a huge burden on folks who just want their letters to be in the public either, but it's just one thought. Like I actually don't know that. I'm pretty familiar with FERPA, but I don't know that law or what other regulations, because my guess is it's not just FERPA. My guess is there's actually a whole body of laws that have to do with both employment and students. And so, I don't know.
Exactly. Yes. And that's where we went back and forth and said, what should we post? What shouldn't we post? Right. And I really need the opportunity to re-look at all the letters. There was about 12 to 14 letters.
I don't remember. There's been a lot of letters. That's the other issue, is that there's just so much to go through.
Right.
So, okay.
Right.
Well, let me know if you want some help.
Some assistance.
I mean,
Great.
that's the kind of thing I actually do know something about a little bit. So
Okay.
if I could sit down, we could sit down and look through them. And
Great. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I think there's public comment later in the meeting.
Well, we passed public comment. I don't know if we're getting
was a
to
question
that.
about
Yeah,
it.
go ahead. Yep.
No, I'm just curious about letters. So when someone writes a letter to the board,
is it automatically published publicly? If it doesn't contain any issues like, students or names of employees, would it always be published?
We usually do, I believe.
If you send an email to the board at haldaneschool.org,
Yeah.
you should get an automatic response
Yeah.
that says that your letter may be published. It doesn't mean that it will be published. That's sort of at the discretion of the board.
So other than the FERPA laws and the other laws you mentioned, what reason would it not be published?
Sometimes, actually, people tell us, we're sending you this letter, but we don't want it published.
But what if you say you want it published?
As long as it's not in violation of FERPA or anything, we won't have a problem. And I think that's kind of been the customary. Do you know when we've started the process?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago, when we started publishing all the letters that came in. I would say 3 years ago.
Because reality is most school districts do not publish letters, but we feel that our policy, well, I don't even think it's been a policy. I think it's just been an adapted procedure that's...
So if you wrote a letter and then you got a response back, an automatic response, and it hasn't been published on the site, then I guess that person would expect to get a response of why and what we would have to do to change it? Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's what we're talking about
Yeah.
right now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I want to know. Thank you.
I don't think we've ever not published a letter. Like, it's not a
Unless it's been
practice.
requested that we
Yeah,
don't.
that's it. That's it. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. The board does not have any nefarious intention to not publish letters that people sent. Actually, our goal would be to publish them unless there were a legitimate concern about not doing it. We haven't ever been in the practice of selecting letters to publish or to not publish. I think there's every reason for them to be in the public record.
Exactly. But again, we have to be cautious of identifying students. So that's really, and I have every intent when my time frees up to sit down with Ms. Familaro and go through those letters and make sure that we get them on public content. And there were a few that requested they not be published, so they're not going to be published. Okay. I lost track. Consent agenda, did we do?
Unfinished business.
Where am I?
Superintendent Search.
Here we are. Okay. Superintendent Search. As I had mentioned in a former meeting, we are in the process of interviewing 2 additional candidates. We met one candidate last night. Yeah, last night. That was just last night. Last night. And we'll be meeting with another candidate tomorrow. The stakeholder group has the opportunity to meet with these candidates as well. As soon as we can come to some sort of conclusion, we'll let you all know.
Actually, one of the things that was really amazing, I thought, and something we were all really impressed with, was the entire committee that had conducted the first 3 interviews. And these are long evenings. Like, you come, there's preparation by the people leading the session, there's the interview that lasts an hour, and then there's a debrief with the BOCES superintendents that are coordinating the search so that they can share the feedback with us. I mean, so all said and done, I mean, it's a couple of hours. And it was 3 hours one week. It was 3 nights a couple of weeks ago, and then 2 nights. And I thought it was really fantastic that everybody could come back. And it's been really nice because the board, the BOCES superintendents who are leading the search, every night they come to debrief us have the nicest things to say about the stakeholder group. Like, just really very positive, really impressed with the questions, the feedback, and the commitment of the group. So we really appreciate that, because it's actually that feedback has, I mean, not surprisingly, it has really helped us. It's helped inform our interview of the candidates and then also our decision-making process. So it's been really fantastic.
So just to give you all an idea, if who's not part of the stakeholder group, the way it works is that the stakeholder group gets to meet the candidate first. They get to ask their questions, and there's a debrief period with the superintendents of BOCES. Then the BOCES superintendents come down to the board, and they debrief with us about what they've heard at the stakeholder meetings, and they give the feedback from that group. And sometimes there's follow-up questions that the group has asked us to ask, and we've been doing that. So it's really important that we had the stakeholder group. It has helped us tremendously throughout the process, so we're very appreciative.
And the feedback, although we know who all the stakeholders are, of course, the feedback that we get is completely anonymous. So the superintendents are telling us, you know, this was a concern, this was a positive, whatever, but they don't tell us who said it. Yeah.
Thank you. So we appreciate your work, and hopefully we'll be coming to a conclusion soon.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big ask, and I think it's really amazing that people were so committed to really stick with it.
Okay, so the applications for the positions of trustee were due yesterday by 5 p.m. The applications that we have received thus far are Mr. Keith Anderson, Mr. John Headland, Miss Sandy McKelvey, Miss Laura O'Connell, and Miss Margaret Parr, incumbent. There are 2 open trustee seats that are both available for a 3-year term, beginning on July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. Trustee Evan Schwartz has indicated that he will not seek re-election.
And I think the PTA is planning a meet the candidates forum type of event, and I'm sure we'll have details on that.
Right.
Has it been confirmed?
Alex, well, she had reached out to a few of us to figure out if April 30th would work, and I know she's going to be reaching out to candidates to see if that would work for them as well.
It's in the works.
Yes, thank you.
The only thing, I'm going to go ahead and point this out. The only thing about that night is that is also possibly the last Nelsonville ZBA meeting for the cell tower. So I actually, quite honestly, I would much rather go. I mean, I don't think it should change your date, but it was something that I wanted you to be aware of because I see many of the same faces that I've seen here when I'm at the ZBA meetings. 7. There are 7 or 7:30. They're typically at 7:30. The ZBA meeting. I can look it up. It's been posted. I can look up right now, but typically the ZBA meetings are at 7:30.
That's something that we can talk to Alex about.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, the board will meet on Tuesday, April 24th at 6 p.m. in the district office, at which time we will vote on the 2018-2019 Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES annual budget and trustees. The next Board of Education business meeting includes the public hearing on the school budget in 3-component format, which will be held on Tuesday, May 1st at 7 p.m. in the band music room. The board, are we going to meet at 6:30 to review policy, or are we putting this on hold? Did you get, yeah, did you get you were asking for the docs.
We could still move forward with the next, I mean, so the questions, and I should just go into the district office and look. So there's no doubt about it, that first section I still have a question about, but there's no reason that should stop us from continuing to move through the
next
13, 14, 15.
does have a packet
We were
for you.
talking about switching up the order, right?
Oh, yeah.
We weren't going to go in order.
Yeah, with the students.
Students.
Yeah, I'm in the process of going through the student.
Okay. So how about we do whatever point you get to?
I mean, that's multiple months. I mean, just so you
So
know.
we'll get to, I don't know, the first 10 or so in that section?
Sure.
Okay.
So we don't have those yet, just so you know. So Linda will
Right.
have to get those to us. She's been really good at copying them again for us.
Yep.
But we do have we have a version, a physical version, but not of those.
Not the revised
Not the student
version.
ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll meet at 6:30 to review those policies. Voter registration will be held on Thursday, May 10th, 2018, from 4 to 8 in the elementary middle school building. Ms. Farmalaro, could you tell us about absentee ballots?
Sure. The absentee ballot application is on the website, and anyone who thinks that they're not going to be in town for the budget and trustee election can fill one out, file it with me in the district office, and an absentee ballot will be mailed to you. If it's you need to look at the application. There's a lot of time restrictions. If it's the day before the vote, it has to be delivered to you personally. If you want it mailed, you need to have the application to me 7 days prior to the election.
Thank you. Okay, with that said, the annual district meeting and trustee election will be held on Tuesday, May 15th, 2018, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in room 105 of the elementary middle school building, really the middle school building. The board will convene in the band room following the closing of the polls and will announce the results of the vote when they are available.
Is there an event planned that night?
Yeah, we usually...
Middle school concert.
Okay. So we usually hang out for a little bit at various different events. This year it's a middle school concert, and then we'll reconvene in the band room.
So the band, but won't the
music.
middle school concert kids be in and out of the band room?
This is true. This is
Good
not.
Yeah, that's,
This is a different venue than what we've been used to
We
attending.
can come up here.
Okay.
Did they do it last year? They did the concert?
yeah, I think
It was
they-
elementary.
No.
No, it was middle school.
We did an art. No,
That
it was
year-
the year before was the art.
Right.
Okay.
They can go into the other choral room, so I think that's, but
But
we
they store
can,
the instruments there.
yeah.
Yeah, they should come up here. Doesn't make
Okay.
a difference.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Okay.
So we'll here.
And usually I think we do the meeting it starts at 8
Right,
instead of the regular 7.
Right.
right.
We can have some extra
start at
policy
8,
to
yeah.
review or something if we run out of stuff while we wait for the vote.
Pizza policy night.
No,
That's a
actually,
good idea.
That's a really good idea because we're often waiting.
Yeah.
We should do some policy reviews.
Okay, you're going to have to get through the next 50 policies and stuff.
Been a little busy with the budget.
Okay, any further communication from the public this time? No? Okay, moving on to new business.
Okay. Well, the first item is the approval to adopt the 2018-2019 Haldane School Budget and Proposition for the annual district meeting on May 15th. The proposed Haldane School District budget for 2018-2019 in the amount of $24,070,392 as indicated in Proposition 1 below, to be presented to voters of the Haldane Central School District at the annual district meeting on Tuesday, May 15, 2018, in the following abbreviated manner, is recommended for approval at this time. Proposition 1, shall the Haldane Central School District be authorized to expend an amount not to exceed $24,070,392 during the 2018-19 school year for the purposes shown in the Statement of Estimated Expenditures by the Board of Education, with such sum to be raised by levy of tax upon the taxable property of the school district. And this is a roll call vote.
Okay.
So we get a motion second, and then I call roll.
Okay, may I have a motion?
So moved. Second?
Okay. President Hammond,
Yes.
Vice President Clements,
Yes?
Trustee Parr,
Yes.
Trustee Schwartz,
Yes.
Trustee Daly.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And it's approved. The next item, do you want me to go on? Okay, the next item is the approval of the tax report card, property tax report card, excuse me, for 2018, 2019. And the recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the attached property tax report card for, it says 27, 2018, is that right? 2018, 2019, prepared by Ms. Andinio, Business Manager.
Have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Is this a roll call or all in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just one quick thing. You only read Proposition 1. Is that okay? Did you have to do it for Proposition 2 and 3, or
You approved Propositions 2 and 3 already?
we did?
Yeah,
Okay.
March 20th.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Okay.
Wasn't quite as momentous.
Yeah. That didn't have to. Did we do roll call for that? Did we do a? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We, yeah.
Okay.
Item 3 is approval to modify for reporting purposes the grade level configuration for Haldane Elementary School to grades K to 5 and Haldane Middle School to grades 6 through 8. This configuration is presently Haldane Elementary School / Middle School grades K to 8. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the modification to the grade level configurations for the Haldane Elementary School to grade kindergarten through grade 8 and that should be kindergarten through grade 5. And the Haldane Middle School to grade 6 through grade 8.
I have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is us. Haldane Audit Committee. Evan, would you like to?
So I just wanted to I put this on as a discussion because Tom Campanelli emailed me regarding the Audit Committee. He was just questioning, he's been the chairperson for so long, and he was wondering if maybe he should hand it over to someone else, either Carol or to Roman or to somebody else, or to see if we even, or if he said he would stay on as a member in the committee, but it seemed like he was just putting out his, getting his thoughts. He was pointing out that this audit group that we have is already up. Next year is the last year. He said 2019, right? And is the last year?
This is the 4th year.
Yeah.
And then we have them for 5.
Right. So now he was clear that he would stay through the chairperson, at least through this audit, okay, through the spring and this summer audit. So, which would go into like October.
October is when they do the presentation.
Right. So it might even be almost premature for this conversation. I mean, this might be a conversation.
But they're required to change, right?
Well, the auditors?
Yeah.
Well, they're not required. After 5 years, we can decide. But like we have in the past switched after 5 years, but we don't have to. But that's not even next year's That's they're here through 8. So they'll be here for 18-19 audit.
You're
For that
talking
audit.
about.
So-
Are you talking about the audit firm,
Right.
or are you talking about the audit committee chair?
No, no.
We haven't, because we use an independent audit committee. Really, I think it would be okay if Tom stayed on with them through year 5.
Well, quite frankly, I've been on the audit committee. So this is probably, of the 11 years I've been on the board, I've been on the audit committee for like 8 of them. Okay, and this has been. I mean, with all due respect, I mean he's just so qualified, as Jen pointed out last night. He is just so qualified in what he does, and so is Roman and Carol. But he really knows what he's doing, and the audit committee works really well. And
So is he asking to go off, or is he offering to stop? Is he
We've
asking?
had this conversation before with Tom. I think what's happening is Tom understands, just like we all understand, that it's sometimes it's important to have fresh eyes on financials.
Right.
It's also something that's often, a best practice to change your auditor every 5 years for that reason. And so I think Tom, as he has said in the past, is saying, hey, just in case you guys want fresh eyes and best practice to not always have the same person leading the financial charge, I'm open to stepping into a different role on the board instead of just being the chairperson, if the board feels like that would be a smart thing to do. I don't know that he's requesting to do it because he doesn't want to do it anymore. But if that's the case, then we should give him a break.
Right.
I mean, I think what he's asking for the board's approval, basically, or kind of our nod to say, if you want to stay doing it, we're really happy to have you stay doing it because you're fantastic. Or, you know what, maybe it's time for a change just for fresh eyes.
And
I think that's what he's looking
Yeah,
for. Yeah,
he also said that he would be on the boards, almost like the way we work as a board, where we rotate leadership positions on the board. So I mean, he was almost maybe one of the other members should be the chairperson, and he could just be on the board. So I would recommend, because I told him that when he emailed me, I said I'll put it on the agenda item for the board meeting, and we'll talk about it, and we'll get back to him. So I think that first of all, there'll be another board. I don't know who's going to be the board member reps for the audit committee. So maybe over the summer, the board reps and the audit committee get together and then kind of talk about the configuration. Definitely don't want to lose him as a member. Okay, at the very least, you want to keep him as a member of the committee. If one of the other members want to step up, or if another person from the public wants to step up as the chairperson, I mean, I think that could be okay. But you definitely want to try to retain him as a member of the audit committee.
And I'm happy to stay on if I'm reelected.
The thing about, I understand the whole idea about fresh eyes, but I think that the role that Tom plays as the chair of the audit committee is different than what the auditors do. So I personally don't see the need to have that sort of same philosophy about switching it around.
I agree.
So to me, the issue is really finding out if he's willing to stay. I wasn't on the audit committee this year, so there's a meeting before the audit takes place. There will be a.
Jump in.
Right. Well, because that's the thing. It seems like that committee should have this conversation. That's really what the steps should be.
Right. So Tom is the chairperson until June 30th because he's voted by the committee.
Right.
They vote who their chairperson is going to be. The establishment of it and the reestablishment of it every year is different because of the timeline, because the audit that carries through October, we start at the end of this month or early May. It's going to be starting up soon. And there's a meeting with the audit committee and the external auditor. So they will be convening before June 30th, and then the audit takes place over the summer. So they can have that conversation of who's going to be the chairperson, but I think that, as with last year, Tom just wanted to say, hey, I've been it for a long time, if you're uncomfortable with it, but he's so qualified and he understands what he's looking at. He understands the entire report, and his job is to really, relay to the board member liaisons and to the board an understanding of the audit. So fresh eyes might not be a great idea in that role because he's comparing from the prior year and he might be pointing out any changes. But it's the auditor that has that 5-year time frame on it, where you don't have to change your auditor every 5 years. But after the interviews last round, it was determined that it was a good idea. Some districts have the same auditor for years and years and years, and it works for them.
Right.
So that's my.
So why don't we say
thoughts on it.
so we're going to meet before June 30th, the audit committee. So I'll tell him that if we can maybe at that meeting we'll talk about it as a committee.
But I think he wanted to get the
Put it
okay
out
from
there.
the board that you're
And the committee
comfortable
too.
with them, right?
Yeah.
And the committee.
So
He didn't want to hog it.
So I'm going to give him that the board is. So I'm going to share with him that we feel that that we would like him. His longevity on the committee makes him even more of an asset.
Right.
Okay. So I'll kind of share that with him.
Yeah, his longevity does not make us uncomfortable.
Okay.
We rely on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But
okay.
it wouldn't be a bad thing to start grooming someone to switch out.
right?
Yeah, that,
His
that audit
longevity
committee
is
has
good.
been the audit committee for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So
You might want to try to
so-
wrangle somebody else onto that board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just so he doesn't feel obligated at some point to say, okay, you know what, I've
Right.
been here 700 years.
Right.
Can someone else step in? If, as long as we have somebody
Right.
ready to move in there,
Yeah.
you know, and he would do that.
Okay. Okay. So I'll share that with him, and we'll get back to you.
To that committee.
Okay.
All
Do
right.
you know when we'll meet in? Probably like
I
around
was
May.
actually making myself a note to make sure that I reach out to the auditor because they
Okay.
haven't called me.
sometime in May.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Great.
Okay, any additional communication from the public at this time? No? Okay, at the conclusion of tonight's regular session, the board intends to convene into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual. There will be no action taken during the executive session. This time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Have a good evening.